Hey folks, this clip is brought to you by Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey from Lockstill Distillery. Make your own luck just like Tennessee football's fast-paced Rattle and Snap offense with Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey. Second time that Tennessee has run into one of these freaking Cinderella teams that has this magical run that nobody expected. And oh my gosh, Sister Jean and Loyola, they go to the Final Four. Tennessee's still never been to one. Oh, here comes Florida Atlantic. They never been to one, and they make it before Tennessee ever does. And both of those teams beat Tennessee on the way there. Makes me ill. But at this point, I would say not necessarily surprising. To get into this conversation that we're going to have here, uh, you know, this just solidified in some people's minds, it just solidified even further that Rick Barnes will never meet your expectations for or exceed your expectations. I'll put it that he'll never exceed your expectations for March. I think this season he met the expectations that I had. I said this team could beat Duke. They could, but I don't think they're going to make it past the Sweet 16. Now I thought they would lose to Purdue, not Florida Atlantic. So Duke win, great. Florida Atlantic loss, bad. And in light of that, this was at outkick.com. I don't remember who wrote it. I don't have it in front of me. But somebody over there wrote that Tennessee should fire Rick Barnes, and replace him with Dusty May at Florida Atlantic. And specifically, you have the connection there. Danny White's brother. Where are the Whites not athletic administrators? It's like his dad was the AD at Duke. His brother's the AD at Florida Atlantic. His other brother's the college basketball coach at Georgia. They're all over the place. But his brother's the AD at Florida Atlantic. And the guy at Outkick wrote that because of that connection, he should just go, hey, bro, why don't you send your boy up here to Tennessee? If you put in a good word for me, and we'll make this transaction happen. And Tennessee gets a new basketball coach that can maybe take them to the promised land. I'll throw it to you first, Zach. I obviously have plenty of thoughts on this, but when you read this, what did you think initially?
Yeah, well, I actually had saw the talk and I didn't see that article, and then I wrote something myself about the whole situation. I don't think they should fire Rick Barnes to hire Dusty May. I don't think they should fire Rick Barnes at all. We've went over that discussion. I mean, that's pretty much is what it is. No point in rehashing all that. Kind of what I wrote is like Danny White's in a situation where Dusty May does seem like he'd be kind of the perfect fit for Tennessee because his teams play tough, but they also score points at a higher clip than Tennessee. I think you mentioned that they kind of ran an offense similar to Missouri's, so it's a little more exciting. It's more exciting what Tennessee currently runs, certainly. And you've got that connection at Florida Atlantic. Also, his brother that's at Georgia now. When he was at Florida, Dusty May was an assistant under Mike White then there at Florida. So there's also that connection. He's taken this team. He's been there for several years, kind of slowly built it up. This was actually the first year they've made the NCAA tournament. So I think after 5, 6 years, 5, 6 years that he'd been there.
Yeah, something like that.
So to me, that is a little concerning because it's like, okay, you haven't really been doing this a lot. It's just lightning in a bottle. And I even said, I think last week on this show that I'm hesitant to say that you should hire a coach based off a tournament run. So I'm kind of going against my own, suggestion there. But you go 35-3, up until this point, you make this Final Four run, knock off some really good teams. Kansas State, I did not think that they would beat them at all. That was surprising to me. This guy's going to get a job this offseason somewhere. I mean, I think Texas Tech has an opening still. I think California. I don't know where he's going to end up, but somebody will hire him based off this run, even if they lose in the Final Four. And if you're Danny White, you're thinking, well, Rick Barnes is almost 70. If he were to retire this offseason, which nobody thinks is going to happen, then you have this perfect option here to just slide right in where he wants to coach a team that plays tough, but it's also something different offensively. We've kind of talked about how you come in and kind of flip some things, and that's how you can really get some kids to buy into a new culture. It seems like a perfect opportunity, but I don't think it's going to be there for Tennessee. I don't think Rick Barnes is going to retire, and there's no way that he's getting fired.
Few things go better with a Tennessee sports victory than an awesome whiskey. And actually, me and Jonathan Crompton had a drink of whiskey during the postgame show of every football win this past season. And more specifically, we had Rattle and Snap Tennessee Select Straight Whiskey. You can see it right there behind me. Log Still Distillery has released a new Tennessee whiskey product line called Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey, named after a long forgotten game of chance. Rattle and Snap is a whiskey for those who make their own luck. There's a 4-year and an 8-year version of Rattle and Snap whiskey. And actually, this one behind me is the 4-year version right here. It's perfect for making your favorite whiskey cocktails or just drinking neat. It's really great stuff. And I mean, you can see it there. The bottle looks great too. You can find Rattle and Snap right now in stores across Tennessee. And Rattle and Snap is also available in Kentucky, Indiana, and Mississippi. So run, don't walk to get yourself some Rattle and Snap whiskey. And follow Rattle and Snap on Instagram at Rattle and Snap Whiskey. That is Rattle and Snap Tennessee Select Straight Whiskey. Completely agree. I mean, guess I'll give you my baseline here. The only way that I would want Danny to make such an aggressive move if it was a clear upgrade, which to me in this case would be, I already said this last week, it would be Kelvin Sampson at Houston. I mean, the guy already made a Final Four. He's had great teams. He made a Final Four at Oklahoma. He hasn't won a national title, but how many guys have? And so, like, to me, that would be like, okay, you are replacing a guy with a literal better track record than Rick Barnes. Period. Okay, you could do that, and I would be like, whew, that's aggressive. Wowie, I didn't see that coming, but it's probably a good move. Okay, so that's the one where I would go, fine. I love the aggression. Let's try to get better. With Dusty May, I mean, so I'm
He
looking
probably
at the
does
guys.
need to do it another year. Like, I think
Yeah.
for a
Exactly.
Power 5 program to feel really, really comfortable hiring him, I think you need to see this one more time. At least like you go Final Four, and then next year, maybe even if it's just like a Sweet 16, you're like, okay, he can play with these guys. You know, give him some
Yeah.
talent, he can make something happen. I think it would be a bit of a risk at this point, but do you believe in what you saw this year and what you've seen in the tournament, or what we've seen in the tournament? I don't think many of us probably watched any FAU basketball throughout the year, so I'm not really
No.
going to, talk about that. But do you believe in what you've seen? That would be the whole point of this.
I mean, his best year before this one was last year, 19 and 15. They were second in their division in the CUSA. They made it. They lost in the first round of the CBI, not even in the NIT tournament. And so, I mean, yeah, he's had one magical year. And you look at the guys that have kind of been like that. Porter Wagner from Loyola, really done nothing. The guy from Florida, Gulf Coast, really done nothing. He's a USC. They did make the tournament this year, but it's not like he's gone on taking USC to a Final Four, all this stuff. The guys who really succeed are like, Mick Cronin at UCLA, came from Cincinnati, had an incredible track record. Cincinnati went to UCLA, made a Final Four. Like, it's that. That's where your sure things come in. Here, this is, I mean, one season. I love the way this guy coaches. Let me be clear. I love the way Dusty May coaches. Seriously. That inbounds play where he runs it like they're wide receivers and they're coming where they set up across the baseline and run it. Genius. Absolute genius. But you couldn't justify that to me. I would be very skeptical. Like, I would be like, whoa, this is a little, everybody even knows me as like the fire everybody guy. And I'm not a fire Rick Barnes guy. I think he's going to retire at Tennessee, but I just think like that would just be, it's just not smart. He just doesn't have that track record yet. Yeah, one Final Four is great, but Rick Barnes has a Final Four in his history. I mean, come on. Like, the guy has done it before, at least that much. Now, if FAU goes and wins a national title, maybe it's a different conversation because that's a pretty giant feat. But, like, dude, that would be a big leap. Yes, this guy is, like, technically sort of in the Danny White network or whatever you want to call it there because his brother's the guy's AD. But that would be a little much for me. I would say if they did it, I would go, whoa, that's crazy. And I would be skeptical. It would kind of, honestly, it would have, my surprise would be totally different. Like I would be like, well, I can't believe they did that. But I think I would have a similar feeling to Josh Heupel. Like I would kind of be like, yeah, this guy might be running a gimmick a little bit. It's not in the same way because it doesn't really translate 1-to-1 with football. But I would kind of be like, he seems pretty good, but we'll see. Like I think I would have that kind of feeling if they actually pulled the trigger like that. And with that said, in no way do I think this is going to happen. This is not happening. This is total fantasy land. Jeff says Mick Cronin was at Xavier. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Because was it Hudgens was at Cincinnati forever, and then I think he was replaced. Yeah.
No, Big Ten Jeff. I was right. It's Cincinnati. He was in Cincinnati from 2006 to 2019.
So did he take over for
me on my own show?
Did he take over for Hudgens? Is that?
No, at Cincy, it was the guy that went to Louisville, the bald guy that got fired. Chris. I can't think. But that was the guy that was at Xavier before, and then at Xavier now it's Sean
Miller.
Sean Miller, yeah, from Arizona. But yeah, I mean that's just way too much of a leap of faith, I guess you could call it, where you would just be going, this guy has had one amazing season, come lead a program that has some of the best resources in America. I mean, like, yeah, Tennessee hasn't been to a Final Four or whatever, but we have more money, more fans, more overall resources than any of these, like Big East, any of these, almost any of the ACC programs too. You have more resources and more fans than almost any of them, outside of just the absolute blue bloods like UNC. Like, I mean, you would just be going, here, take over, to a dude that's had a single good season. That's nonsensical to me.
Does would his resume make you feel any different about the fact that it's not like he's been a head coach for 6 years, but he'd been an assistant for 15 years or almost before he took that job? He had been under Bobby Knight a little bit at Indiana. He is an Indiana guy too, so there would always be that, aspect of things as well anytime that job comes open. But it's not like he just came out of nowhere necessarily. Like, he's been grinding away for quite some time in college basketball. So he's seen a lot.
I just don't think I would have. I mean, I could dig into him further, that entire history, but I just think I would still have that same feeling of just like, hey, he's been pretty good. We'll see. Where if you hired, again, I go back, like if you had that super aggressive move and went and hired Kelvin Sampson, I'd be like, whoa, now this is a great move. This is a guy who's, been there, done that, made a Final Four 2 years ago and almost made a Final Four this season. And, that's one thing. And this, just with May, I don't think I would get past that until I saw the evidence. I don't think I would get past that stage of just being like, yeah, we'll see how he does, if he could really do it.
Do you think we're making too much out of the Danny White connection too? Because when I was looking back at some of the hires he's made, a lot of them were guys that didn't necessarily have these connections to him. I mean, Josh Heupel is the one that we point to, but like Lance Leopold, when he hired him at, I guess, Buffalo, he didn't have a connection. I don't think Nate Oates had a connection to him. So
Nate Oates was just an assistant on that basketball team.
Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't seem like there's it doesn't seem like that's a prerequisite for Danny White at all. So I wonder if we're making a little too much of that.
Yeah, maybe. Honestly, who knows? And like, would he want to even do that to his brother? Like, take his coach? I don't know what the family dynamic is there. I would assume they get along. They seem like a good family, but yeah, I think
that's a good point. Yeah.
Jeff brings up Doug McDermott at Creighton. Oh, I love Doug McDermott. But I think he's like a dyed-in-the-wool Creighton guy. Didn't he like go there? That's like really in the weeds with college basketball.
Yeah, that's like when Mike Gundy. Every time he came up for the Tennessee job, I never saw him leaving Oklahoma State. I mean, he's an Oklahoma State guy, played football there. He's from the area. He was never going to leave, Oklahoma State for Tennessee or one of these other jobs. And I do think sometimes people think they can pull these guys. I mean, it has happened. We have seen it happen a few times, but typically it's hard to get a guy away.
Well, first off, it was Greg McDermott, not Doug. Doug's his kid, who played at Creighton for all that time.
Oh yeah, yeah. About that.
But he's actually Northern Iowa, and he coached in Northern Iowa, and then Iowa State, and then Creighton. Interesting. Anywho, that's getting off the reservation a little bit there. The only other thing that I want to talk about was just like these seniors leaving potentially and sort of the future for Tennessee basketball. Would I'll ask you this, Zach. Would you even want any of these seniors back at Tennessee? Because I'm torn on it. There are certain ones I want back.
I'd want Vescovy back.
Yeah, that's it's absolute no brainer. I would beg Santiago Vescovi to stay at Tennessee.
If I knew that Josiah Jordan-James was going to be 100% for the whole season, I would say yes. But you can't count on that, and I think that throws the dynamic off so much where you don't know who's going to be playing each week, each game, and that's tough to manage if you're Rick Barnes and the basketball staff. It's really hard to manage because he's so important when he's out there, but you can't count on him, and then other guys on the team, they don't really know what their role is going to be. So I don't know if that would be the best idea, but Vescovy for sure.
I would say keep Vescovy if you at all can. I think he's going to leave. I think he's going to go play overseas ball. I mean, he is just like the perfect overseas basketball guy. I think.
Yeah, he's not an NBA guy.
No, but he would be good on a overseas team, I think. And so he could go do that. But man, you just set him up with an NIL deal or something and get him to come back and then hit the transfer portal. That's what I would do. Let everybody else go, hit that transfer portal and see what you can pull in. And I mean, what I would like to see is Rick subvert expectations, the ones that we talked about last week, where he really has adamantly like recruited to a culture rather than recruiting the best guys. He's recruited a Tyreek Key instead of a Mac McClung or something like that. That wasn't what that's 2 different years. He didn't do that, but I'm just saying he passed up on Matt McClung in the past, and then Tyreek Key this season was a transfer. I want him just go and get the best guy. Let these seniors go, bring in transfers. Because I mean, some of these teams that are in the Final Four, Miami, one of the best players transfer. I mean, it can just make such a massive, massive difference. And in basketball, the turnover it affects your team so much more because it's such a smaller rotation, way less players. So you can flip a team in one off season with transfers, recruits. Got a pretty decent recruiting class coming in. You got DeLeone in the wings. You got Jefferson in the wings if he doesn't transfer. BJ Edwards in the wings if he doesn't transfer or whatever might be happening there. Just let those seniors go and let's hit the transfer portal. That would be my prescription, but
it's not going to happen though, right?
No, I think it's going to be.
It would require Rick Barnes completely changing a lot of his philosophies, and that's just not. It's just not going to happen. And he's almost 69 years old. Of course, it's not going to happen. But he's going to recruit to that culture because that's the style of basketball he plays, and he's not going to bring a guy in that won't play defense. Like that is not. It's just not going to happen. And a lot of those high-profile names. I mean, that's what you're going to get, or that's what you think you're going to get, and you think it's going to be a problem. And I don't see that happening.
I don't either, but it is what I would do. It just would be the smartest thing. Just be shameless. Rick's a good guy. He doesn't want certain players because of how they would interact with his team and mess up the dynamic in these things, or might act up off the court or whatever it might be. Just go get the best guy. Please. But
get somebody that can create their own shot and score. I mean, that's just fine. I mean,
you got Sakai coming back. You're gonna have the best point guard in the SEC next season if he can get back, be 100% healthy, and be that same guy again.
That's gonna be. I mean, he tore his ACL in February.
It's gonna be close.
That's gonna be really close. You know, you start playing November. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start playing until conference play.
Yeah, I would bet money that he's not going to play a lot until conference play. He might be like Josiah this season, and they take it really easy through those initial snoozer games. Well, we'll see what exactly Rick does. And